It seems appropriate as we head into winter in the Northern Hemisphere that we recognize today is the 100th anniversary of the conquering of the South Pole by 5 intrepid Norwegian explorers. The South Pole sits atop a featureless, windswept, icy plateau in the Antarctic, more than 9,300 feet above sea level, about 800 miles from the nearest open water. The ice is about 9,000 feet thick there, so the land beneath the ice is near sea level. The basic geography of Antarctica wasn't really understood until around 1840, when American naval officer Charles Wilkes was the first to claim that it was actually a brand new continent. The first recorded attempt to find a route from the coast to the South Pole was made by British explorer Robert Scott, who got within 530 miles of the pole in December 1902. Later, Scott's partner Ernest Shackleton returned to Antarctica as leader of a different expedition and got within 115 miles of the pole in January 1909 before turning back. The first to actually reach the South Pole were Norwegian Roald Amundsen and 4 fellow explorers on December 14, 1911. Their journey from base camp along the coast to the pole took 8 weeks and covered more than 1,000 miles. They camped 4 days at the pole with their 16 surviving sled dogs, leaving a tent, flag, and note behind. Meanwhile, Robert Scott had returned to Antarctica to try to get to the pole first, but his group arrived 34 days after Amundsen. Scott wrote in his diary, "This is an awful place for us to have labored without the reward of priority." Sadly, Scott and his 4 fellow explorers died on the trip back from the pole. Today, the South Pole is marked by a stake in the ice and a sign that records the dates that Amundsen and Scott reached the pole and a short quote from each man. The U.S. established a research base at the pole in 1956 that's permanently staffed and appropriately named the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station. Because the ice sheet is slowly sliding on the underlying land at a rate of about 30 feet per year, the station is ever so gradually moving away from the geographic South Pole. So the sign and stake are repositioned every New Year's Day to compensate for the movement of the ice. There's currently plenty of activity in Antarctica commemorating the centennial of the Amundsen and Scott expeditions. For example, 2 teams are currently participating in a race retracing the explorers' routes to the pole, with expected arrival in January. A company called Extreme World Races is sponsoring a 400-mile ski competition to the pole starting tomorrow, while another company called Polar Explorers will fly you to the South Pole on either Amundsen's or Scott's anniversary for a mere $40,000, weather permitting. One member of the Weather World staff has been to Antarctica, weather permitting. Maybe Paul Knight will tell you a little bit about his trip there during the extended forecast next.